And we're back. Hello, Civ fans. So our next segment, I know there's a lot of people that are very excited about this. We're going to be talking about the music of Civilization VI Gathering Storm. So I have in studio with me Jeff Knorr and Roland Rizzo, both composers for Civilization VI. So thank you guys so much for coming and talking to us today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, there's so many people that are just very excited about hearing about the soundtrack, the different instruments, things that have gone into it, because it really does bring the whole game to life. So, again, thank you so much. And
Thank you.
I guess just, can you tell us a little bit about yourselves? Roland, do you want to start?
Okay, I'm Roland Rizzo, and then the question over here says, how many games have you worked on? And so
We're supposed to pretend
to
that we
pretend
don't
there's
have
no
reminders.
questions on the monitor, but yeah, so it's, to be safe, I'll say in the vicinity of around 75. It could be, it's probably higher, but, you know, we'll be safe. And it's been a long 36 years, so.
All right, so can you now name every
No,
one?
no, no. I have the notes someplace. But
Nice.
and you go.
I'm Jeff Knorr, and I've been working on games for about 10 years or so not quite as many games as Roland over here. Probably
But it's all
15 to 20
work.
or so
Yeah.
that I've worked on. Yeah.
Awesome. So when you guys are getting started with a new Civilization game, Gathering Storm, what is the first thing that like comes down to you and that you need to like start researching or diving into? Is it like the civs?
As soon as we get to civs, we can get started on researching their traditional and folk instruments, and then we go and we research their traditional music if we can find any snippets. And we do that because Jeff tries to find actual ethnic musicians to record this, but if we can't, then we have to try to simulate it as closely as possible. So we do all of that research, you know, take it.
Exactly. Yeah, it all starts with that list of civs. Once we get the list, we just start researching, and a lot of times it's music that we've never heard or we don't know about yet. So we have to learn about it first, and hopefully find performers who can help teach us too.
That's what I was going to ask
yeah.
next. Like, are you guys experts on every culture in the
No.
world and their instruments? And
No, but that's what's so great about the job. What I love so much about working on Civ is learning about all these different musical, ethnomusicology is a cool field.
Absolutely.
It's just, you know.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we just talked about the Maori and how Kupe came to life, how he came to be, and, you know, part of that is the music. So I want to pull up a little bit of music for us to listen to while we chat. And it should be going. And so this here, Jeff, this was your baby, correct?
Yes, I worked on the music for
Okay.
the Maori. Yeah.
All right, so what can you tell us about the Maori tracks?
Well, the Maori tracks are based on a genre in Maori culture called kapa haka. So this is not just music. This is dance and hand movements and songs, and also the haka, which is like known as a challenge song. And so these groups actually will put together a whole suite of these different types of songs and movements, and up to 40 minutes long, and give performances of them.
Oh, nice.
So, of course, I had to learn about what this was and how to incorporate it into the soundtrack to be a good underscore for the Maori in the game. And really the only way that could happen was to find an actual group. You just cannot fake this sort of thing. And I found one. There was a group in Vancouver of
not too far
of Maori people. They were from New Zealand. They were just expats living in Vancouver, and they wanted to get together and sing their songs and do hakas, and formed a group in Vancouver. And they actually tour around and sing, and
That's awesome.
and I think they were in DC not too long ago. So it was great. I was able to work with them and actually record a real kapa haka group singing some of the songs and singing the most well-known haka, kamate, and then there's another haka that shows up in the ancient era. So there's a little bit of everything that we included for
Nice.
the Maori. Yeah.
So, what was the process of kind of going from the ancient theme to like the atomic theme, and how do you kind of figure what's going to go into each one?
I usually like to think of the ancient era as kind of being the tradition or the genre in a very pure, unaltered presentation.
Original format is
Yeah.
So we try not to do too much to that. Sometimes we might slow things down just to give it a more mysterious type feel for the ancient era to kind of fit the era. But generally, we just want it to be the tradition kind of in its pure sense, in its pure way that it would be performed. And then we can start to add other things, add other elements to build on for the other eras. So you get that sense as your civilization is building and developing and changing, the music is also building and changing and whatnot. So there's a pretty kind of standardized way that we've done it. So we add some medieval strings in the medieval era, then we add the orchestra in the industrial era, and then we take that orchestra arrangement and add additional electronics and percussion for the atomic era. So getting that all to work when you're dealing with something like the haka versus a love song, which is the other part of the main theme for the Maori, a song called Pokari Kariana, is pretty tricky because how do you get the haka is so emotional, it's so expressive. To Western ears, it might even sound just like they're shouting, but it's actually very musical. How do you incorporate that with
Something that's
basically Western instruments
Uh-huh.
and something melodic? And I tried to go off of the text actually of the haka. It speaks of, I won't go into too much of the story, but you should go and read about the story of Kamate because it's really cool. But part of the lyrics are, it is death, it is death. Basically, the person who composed it thought he was going to die, but then he says, it is life, it is life. I think I'm going to live now. And so you get this kind of pull of death versus life, and eventually life kind of conquering death. So I wanted, you hear the haka and you think, oh, maybe that's negative, maybe it's war music. But I actually wanted the haka section to sound victorious.
Yeah.
So musically, I tried to bring that out with what I underscored underneath the haka there.
Nice. All right, so let's move on to another civ, which I think is particularly cool. Roland, I believe this was one that you took the helm on.
Yeah, this is the Phoenician music, which is based off of the translations and interpretations of a cuneiform tablet. And they were done by Anne Kilmer, Marcel Duchesne Guillemin, and M.L. West.
Nice.
And the text for the hymn was on the top half of the tablet. On the bottom half, they interpreted it as durations and intervals, but as we talked about it, it had to be all guesses because no one knows even what their scales sounded like, or so it's, we said, you guessed, we'll follow along. So
this is the first time that this Phoenician music has been performed and played.
Well, parts of it I actually used in DLC for Civ 5.
Oh, okay.
Because Babylon was one of the civs in that Jeff was off on vacation, so so I did that DLC, and the leader was Nebuchadnezzar, and it was Babylon. So I used a piece of it for that.
Was it the same hymn?
Yes. Well,
Oh,
there's
cool.
that's the only
Yeah.
the only thing we could find from
there's-
Phoenicia. So
The whole collection, they found this whole collection, and there's one in particular, number 6, that is nearly complete. So it's considered like the earliest notated complete piece of music, but we have no idea.
you still no idea what it sounded like.
Right, yeah.
or what they turned into notes is actually what it sounded like.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, but we do have some instruments in this that are very
From
old.
the era, yes.
Yeah.
So we used ney flute, which goes back, 4,000 years. Duduk, which is a double reed instrument, which is also very old, very old, distant relative of the oboe, and then a lyre for the stringed, which is like a big U frame with the strings in it for
That
plucking
is the
and
first
strumming.
instrument that you have said that I recognize.
Oh, okay. And then hand drums and other things, but
Yeah.
we picked everything to sound as old as possible.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful track, and it's one of my favorites in the game. I kind of want to just lay there at night and like light some candles, just put on a face mask and do self-care. But for anyone out there who's interested, there's some really cool photographs online that you can look up of.
You can see the tablet.
Yeah, the tablet itself.
And you can look up the instruments too.
And we do actually have pictures of a couple of these instruments that I hadn't heard of. None for Phoenicia, but for our next one, we have Mali. So what is this here, Jeff? I think you work with this guy.
That
right?
is a kora,
Okay.
a 21-string kora, and that is very common in West African music, very characteristic of the griot tradition or jali tradition, which is basically it's passed from family to family.
Oh, cool.
And they're not just musicians, they're storytellers and kind of historians for West African culture.
Yeah.
And they would pass this down, children would pass it on to their children. And so the performer that I worked with is actually a descendant, Amaru Kuyate, who lives here in Baltimore.
Oh, cool.
Is actually a descendant, and his father and grandfather, great, going back 150 years or something like that, all musicians.
Wow.
Yeah.
So is this instrument that he brought in, whose name I have already forgotten?
Amaru.
Amaru.
Yes.
Is his Amaru one that has been in the family for that long?
I don't think so. I think he actually builds them.
Oh, wow, cool.
So I think I didn't ask him specifically about this instrument that we're seeing here, but my guess is that he actually built that himself because he does build them.
That's awesome.
Which I think that is also passed down.
Nice.
How to build them.
Yeah, for sure. So in addition to this instrument here, there's also the kora. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the kora, yeah.
And that is 21 strings?
That's correct.
Okay. I'm just like saying facts about instruments without knowing anything about them. But I don't know, it seems very cool to me. So something that you had mentioned, I think this is the theme that's playing right now, is we've got some electric guitar going with these
Yeah.
instruments.
So in the atomic era, we bring in some electric guitar work, which in a weird way, you don't always think that you take a very ancient instrument like the kora, and it just worked. Like it sounded so, just the vast expanse of like African, Saharan kind of West Africa, and with these long sustained electric guitar notes, it still sounded very West African, even for all the way in the atomic era. So
I mean, I'm a fan of adding electric guitar to anything, really. So, but yeah, that's great. All right, who do we have next? Oh, did I switch too much? Okay. Is this right? Yeah, Hungary. Okay. So, Hungary. Now, we actually got to have fun with this soundtrack the other day because Carl and Ed went head-to-head in a multiplayer game. I don't know if either of you saw this, but Ed was playing as Hungary, and he was just kind of moseying along, as the music is doing right now. And then very suddenly, his arm blossomed into this great, powerful force and came crashing down upon
Poor Carl.
poor Carl. So Roland, this was one of your pieces that you worked on, right?
Yeah, this one was fun because it consists of two different tunes. I have to look at the notes for the first one to pronounce it. I'm sorry, Hungarian fans, but it's called Hej Dunaral Fuja Gel, which is about a wind blowing down the Danube, making the poor people cold. Mm-hmm. And then the other one is called Siniga Siniga, which translates to Titmouse Titmouse, a children's tune. Mm-hmm. And the first one was collected by Bartók in 1907. And when in this piece was written in 3 sections. The first section is the upper strings playing the folk tune in a moderate tempo. And in the lower strings, I tried to incorporate some Bartókian sounding dissonances like in his orchestral music. But then when you get to the middle section, I made it sound like a Oompa beer festival kind of band, that plays. And then the last section is a peasant dance. Mm-hmm. And it's a fast tempo, and that's when we incorporate the cymbalon, which is the Hungarian national instrument, and it's their version of a hammered dulcimer kind of instrument. And then there's also a clarinet solo, which is popular in a lot of peasant dances. And then it builds to the frenzied, ending, which speeds up all the way to the end. And Jeff, while he was there in Prague recording the industrial music, he can tell you about the size of this cymbalon.
Oh yeah, in the picture here, right?
In the picture you see the cymbalon player.
It's big. I mean, you can see it's almost like a small grand piano that is hit with hammers.
So it's kind of like the piano without the keys in a way, right?
Yeah, it's very similar. Okay. And there actually are dampers on it too, so that's similar to a piano as well. So as the strings are ringing, he can dampen them to mute them again. So yeah, it's very much like a piano that's struck with hammers.
Nice. So what music instruments do you guys play, if anything? I assume something.
Yeah, I played.
I know you're in a band.
Woodwind
right?
instruments. No, I'm in a couple of orchestras. But
orchestras. Apologies.
I used to be in bands, but I didn't have practice time for everything, so I gave up the bands to focus on the orchestra music. So with them, I play the clarinet.
Okay, cool. What about you?
So my best instrument is cello.
Okay.
But I also play piano and guitar, bass guitar, and some other random stuff like that. Anything strings related.
Is this the third part, the peasant dance?
Yeah, and we already went past the clarinet section, which Pete Murray joked that I wrote it for myself.
Yeah, this part, it gets faster and faster and faster.
To the end, yeah.
This was the perfect theme for Ed's
army
just slowly popping up with
That's awesome.
all the levied units, just like, here I am, let's go to war. All right, who we got next? I think it's Canada.
This is...
Yes, okay, so this is the Canada medieval theme, right? Mm-hmm. I didn't notice what you were talking about until yesterday. So I'm not even going to try to say these words. So I'm going to leave that to you.
So yeah, in the Canada medieval piece, there's some really cool Quebecois foot stomping footwork, which is, I probably don't even pronounce it correctly. I believe it's potorhythmy, or something like that.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, sounds like a word.
which is this foot percussion, which is as far as I'm aware, really pretty unique to Quebecois culture. So you'll hear the most basic rhythm is your heel, and then toe toe. So you get heel toe toe. So dun, 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 but I can't do it very fast. So
Heel, toe, toe.
yeah. So now imagine playing.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
Like going like this.
Yeah.
Really fast and playing
Like
fiddle,
instrument at the
and
same
that's
time.
what they do.
Okay. And that's what we're hearing.
Yeah. So you'll hear that in there alongside a few tunes. There's Vive la Canadienne, which was kind of almost like Quebec's national anthem of sorts. Then there's a tune called the Crooked Stovepipe, which is a fun little northeast Canadian tune. And then there's so many different traditions in Canadian music, and I figured the best way to tie them all together would to just bring in "O Canada" at the end. So that's what you'll hear. But yeah, the foot tapping is in there. There's also the bones. I don't know if you're aware of that instrument. So they take these animal bones.
Oh, it is bones.
It is actually literally bones.
That's awesome.
And they take two of them in their hand, and they have a certain way. It's very similar to spoons, like if you've seen spoons in like Appalachian music. So actually, you can hear it right there, the clicking.
Yep.
That's the bones, and that's also very common in this type of music. So they would take it and just do these intricate clicking type bone rhythms, which interestingly, because it's kind of part of Acadian culture a little bit, the Acadians, you also see this show up in Cajun music, believe it or not.
Oh, okay.
Because the Acadians are related, so it's really crazy how all these musical cultures kind of are intertied a little bit.
Yeah. And yet they all really have their own feel.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Awesome. All right.
Well,
so,
before you go on to the next
ooh, okay.
one,
What do you got?
this is the medieval piece, but Jeff's industrial version for Canada is gorgeous.
Yeah.
So you've got to hear that if you haven't yet. It's just sweet. Yes.
I had a lot of fun with the putting together a grand kind of arrangement to celebrate Canada, basically.
Nice.
So.
Yeah, it was-
You aren't Canadian, are you?
No, but
Okay.
I have some Canadian friends, and actually, we recorded in Vancouver. I've done some really
cool.
like great Civ recordings with either Canadians or in Canada.
Okay. So it's got a special place
I
in
always
your heart.
like I like working with Canadians and going to Canada to record things. So
Nice.
yeah.
Now, I don't have details on soundtrack releases, but hopefully more information will come out about that soon. But I believe all of these are available to listen to now in some manner, and hopefully officially soon. All right, so next one we got is Sweden. There we go. So what is this instrument here?
So what you're seeing there is a nyckelharpa,
Nyckelharpa.
which basically means key harp.
Okay.
So if you look, you can see the player here. This is our wonderful Renaissance bowed string specialist, Niccolo Seligman, who has played in every single medieval era piece in the game.
Okay.
And he said, hey, I can play nyckelharpa for you too.
Oh, cool.
So he did. So he is, the way that the notes are triggered is by the keys that you're seeing there, which is very different than actually pressing the strings, right? Usually with a violin, you're pressing the actual strings down. Here you're pressing keys instead. So it's a very different instrument to play. It took a while for him to get used to playing, but he did a great job.
It's awesome. And we've got Helen Gar. Is that
Helen Gore.
Helen Gore.
Yes.
Okay. Helen Gore. Swedish drinking song.
Yes.
I'm all in favor of drinking songs being in the game.
Yeah, so this is, it's a really interesting tune I ran across when I was researching tunes. It's basically like their version of a toast.
Oh, okay.
So here in the US, someone gets up and says some words, and then they say, here, and we take a drink, and it's in Sweden, they just sing a song. So
That's lovely.
So one of these is Helen
Aw,
Gore,
yeah.
and they'll sing the song, and there's actually a little pause where you can take your drink,
Is that in here?
like cheers. So it's in the industrial and atomic eras. You'll actually hear the pause,
Nice.
and then take the drink, and then finish the song.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love it.
So it's like a toast. You
Yeah.
Think of that. Yeah.
So how many of the, this is a question for both of you, of the tracks have you worked on for Gathering Storm that like kind of brought you to new songs, like hearing things that you might not have heard before? Were there any that
All
stuck
of
out to you?
Hungary.
All of them?
Everything.
Hungary,
Yeah, everything.
The Hungarian songs.
Yeah.
Phoenicia, I mean, no one's heard any of their songs. The Inca music was all, we're not covering it today, but I didn't know any of those either before. So, yeah, it was.
Nice.
Every time we work on one of these, we learn a lot of, things.
Yeah, it's always such an adventure,
Yeah.
to dive into these traditions. There's all so rich, and
Yeah, it's
We're just-
what makes it so much fun.
we're
Yeah.
just open
Yeah.
open to whatever we find.
Awesome. All right, so in addition to the Civ themes, we've also got these little clips of wonders that will play throughout the game. So I included one in here that we're going to show right now, Machu Picchu. I love it. So when you're trying to make a wonder movie or the track for a wonder movie, you've got a really short period of time.
Yes.
And you need to capture like the spirit of this place.
Place in between 15 and 18 seconds is
Yeah.
what the average. Yeah. So it's quickly you have to feel that it's tribal, it's Incan, it's South American, it's in a very short amount of time. So the high flute is a pinquilo, which is from the Andes mountain region. The strummed instrument is a charango, which is also a Andes mountain version of a lute, and then some of the percussion uses a cajon and a bass cajon, and then a hand drum, and then for some flavor, there's a pan flute in there too. So it's like quickly you have to know right away that it's from that region, so.
Yeah, and I think that you do a really incredible job of just like making it very iconic and just in that 15 to 18 seconds, like, okay, we're here, we're suddenly on Machu Picchu, it's amazing, we're watching it being built, and then we go back into the rest of the tracks.
Yeah. So, yeah, and there's a lot of them too. Wonders. I can't remember since the base game, but there's over 30, I think, now.
I don't know the number offhand, but yeah.
It's-
Do you ever have trouble like trying to keep them different from each other? Or are they?
Some of the Middle Eastern ones get tough because, you want to know right away it's Middle Eastern. So there's a style, and then the next Middle Eastern one you do is like, it has to be different, but it still has to be recognizable immediately as Middle Eastern, and, so.
Yeah, one of the tricky things with Middle Eastern is they have many different scales, but the most kind of to Western ears scale that sounds most in Middle Eastern is this one called Hijaz. So you tend to write something in Hijaz maqam, and it sounds similar to other things in Hijaz.
Right.
So I think that's what Roland is kind of hinting at. And a lot of the other scales have a lot of microtones, so they
Right,
might
which
sound
is
kind of
very hard to
strange to
do.
people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, there's just so many different ways of doing music throughout the world, and they all do have their own unique style. I'm not an expert on it. I was in choir in high school, and I was all right, I guess. But you guys really have brought something to this game that just makes it feel so alive and so real when you're playing. And I know that a lot of the fans really appreciate it.
Cool.
So we've got just
thank you.
a couple more minutes if you guys had anything else you wanted to add and talk about.
No, I'm okay.
I could mention that just the opening movie actually incorporates
yes.
some interesting elements of the text to Kamate,
Oh, cool.
as well as text from the Epic of Gilgamesh.
I
So
didn't know that.
yeah, so it's kind of interesting. I'll have to post what the lyrics actually are, but you get it very much kind of historically ties into the game, and also this important epic about natural disasters, which is obviously a big theme of the expansion, tied into the actual underscore to the opening movie there.
Nice.
So, and likewise, you get that, of Kamate, where it is death. You see that
Yeah.
that kind of destruction, but it is life. You see humanity coming together and rising above these challenges. So it was almost like I was really glad they chose the Maori, because that haka was such a good fit for rising above challenges
Yeah.
and coming together to celebrate life over death, basically.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, which is a huge theme in
Yeah.
the Civilization games, is just overcoming
Yeah.
the challenges around you and
Yeah.
Prospering in some manner.
Yeah.
But awesome. Thank you guys so much
you're
for coming and
welcome.
talking to us. Like,
Sure.
I learned a lot. So we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Civilization 6 Gathering Storm is going live tonight at midnight Eastern Standard Time. And check out our social media on Twitter, Civilization. There's a cool contest going on with, before I say the wrong thing, with Intel. There's a CPU giveaway, which is awesome. And Civ is currently free to play on Steam, Civ 6. So check it out. It's a great time. Thank you guys. We'll be back in a minute.